Leanne Kamenko. I'm the Global CEO of VMLY&R Commerce, and delighted to be here for a Commerce Reimagined session with our very own James Galland, who is our Global Director of Marketplaces in Amazon, really an Amazon expert. And we bring that into thinking about all marketplaces. We're really going to get in there deep and dissect Amazon today for everyone's benefit, coming off of Amazon Prime and going into now back to school and into the holiday season. So no better time to learn from what worked and maybe didn't work as well during Amazon Prime, or what was a little bit surprising and new for us as well. So I'm excited to share those learnings with you, James. Welcome to the conversation.
Great to be here. The simple answer to that is no, brands have not missed out. Prime Day was fairly unique this year. There were some really exciting new trends and technologies, and consumer behavior has been fascinating to watch. Although it was a record year for Amazon and they were seeing 25% growth in volume, that doesn't mean the shopper season is ending. In fact, what we've seen for the holiday season is that more and more shoppers are buying early. So we're seeing July, August is the kickoff point with about 40% buying over that period, but it does start to scale month by month by month. And what we're seeing, especially today, is the modern shopper is well informed. They're engaged. They want to actively hunt for deals. We know that 33% of shoppers actively wait for deals now before they purchase. They're looking for brilliant brand experiences. And what I would say to brands now is, when you talk about marketplaces, they are algorithmically driven. So anything you want to win on will take time to win organic visibility on shelf. However, winning on those key moments is crucial, because if they perform at the right time, they will see a halo benefit that will carry them into the 2024 period. So to go back to the original question, have they missed out? No. Consumers are actively looking for deals, business to go, and they will engage if the creative and the value is there for them to acquire.
So let's get into that consumer behavior of actively looking for deals. I'd love to hear a little bit more what you saw during Prime Day. Is that something that you think is a change that you're seeing now? Does it cut across all different segments of consumer? Are they like comparing Amazon Prime Day compared to maybe other retailers are now responding because of the competitive pressure of having an Amazon Prime Day? I know that's a lot to put at you at once, but just very interested in that, consumer trend, especially because you already turned to Amazon knowing that it stands for deals.
Absolutely. Yeah, we are currently in a unique period of time. McKinsey ran a report and said that 80% of shoppers were less confident now in the economy than they were over COVID. We're seeing that the vast majority are changing their purchase behavior, and that if you look at the way shoppers engage, over 50% have tried private label over the last 3 months. There's either a trend to shift into core non-discretionary items, or to find value in the perception they see. Looking at the way that consumers were engaging with Prime Day itself was fascinating. 55% of shoppers researched other retail prices before they actually purchased on Prime Day itself. That comes from Numerator, who ran an extensive review of the Amazon basket size, consumer profiling. But what was really interesting behind it is shoppers are hungry for deals in that space. I used to work heavily on UK activation. Hot Deals is a huge platform in the UK itself. It drove up to 20% of all my traffic on Prime Day itself. That's an external platform I didn't advertise on, and that's solely because consumers are informed. They want to identify proper value on site. They will research what they think is a good deal, and if they can engage with something they think is adding value, they will move to acquire it in that space. We also found on Prime Day itself that, interestingly, there was a 700 pip swing in dilution from competitors actually activating on the event. That comes from Digital Commerce 360. And what it really shows is that, especially with smaller partners, although Walmart Connect and Target Circle had really big activation weeks to try and compete, a lot of the other partners were holding back their activations to win the H2 calendar season. So when we talk about H2 having a lot of potential, I'm expecting to see more and more retailers aggressively target the idea of providing value to their consumers with great deal events across the year itself.
So it sounds like overall basket spend is not going down, but they're looking literally for more for less. That's interesting. So also now building on that and based on other things that you're just saying, I'd love to go into a little bit more understanding around they're looking for brand experience and brand engagement, which you would normally have not thought of associated with Amazon as much. It's not really the marketplace where you're trying to get people to stay in the marketplace as long as possible. It feels like it's like one click and out as much as you can. So I would love to understand a little bit about how do you balance that focus on content for the algorithm and content for brand experience, and what does brand experience even mean in that environment?
It's a brilliant question. That definition of experience is evolving by the day. You're absolutely right. If you look at Amazon from even a few years ago, it has historically been the most brilliant customer experience from a least stressful shopping experience of any retailer online. They tried to prioritize as quick a path to purchase as possible because it was regarded as creating that seamless, optimized experience. That has evolved. Amazon now wants to be Alibaba. It wants to move into the same space that the big e-commerce giants in the eastern part of the world are operating in. They want to create brilliant social experiences. They want to keep the shopper on site to engage with content and build their basket spend around an ecosystem. I mean, if you look at Twitter and the rebranding to X over the last couple of weeks, it's a great representation of how these big companies are now looking at how can they build an ecosystem? How can they keep shoppers on site? And when we talk about the role of content to build those brilliant brand experiences, it's essential. Amazon needs to be regarded as a brand building opportunity, not a sales channel. 61% product search now begins on Amazon. And that makes it a great source of education, but crucially, it's also a source of influence. So for every dollar spent on site, the Digital Shelf Institute found in a test that $7 was spent across the total ecosystem around that. Now, if you think about what that means when you're building brilliant content, one, it needs to be built around the consumer. So you need to have the right technology in place, the right data systems to really map out who the consumer is, when they're shopping, where they're shopping, and how you should build content for that part of the shopper journey. And then secondly, and I think this is something you touched on, how do you optimize it for the algorithm? You just need to ensure that the content actually ticks the box for what, say, the Amazon A10 is looking for. Do you have the right titles? Do you have the right hero imagery? Do you have the right, what we call A plus, B plus content? If you don't, you're not going to be visible in the algorithm. And considering 60% of all product clicks go to the first 3 images that are visible in search, you won't be winning the basket share.
That was exceptional, James, and you covered a lot. So I'd love to go back and just dissect a little bit, especially just maybe focus on that last piece that you mentioned, because I know we have a lot of people here that have an expertise in Amazon, but also people here that are still learning for their brands and their businesses. And sometimes, it's hard to ask questions. and I think even when you talk to Amazon, they assume that you know so much, but I think it's always good to be able to kind of make sure that we are underscoring the fundamentals. So that last piece of really understanding what drives the algorithmic success on Amazon, if you could just hit that one more time and really kind of go into a double click almost in each of those definitions a little bit more, I think would be really valuable.
Absolutely. You'll find that some people refer to it as the A9 algorithm, some refer to it as the A10.
Yeah.
It's effectively 9 variables or 10 variables that directly influence how visible your product's going to be when you go into a search keyword. So below the ever-expanding sponsored product list that you now see on Amazon search, the A10 is directly driving what that first product will be that you'll see. And the key variables that go into it will be sales velocity, it will be profitability, it will be the stock levels you have. Amazon heavily penalizes brands that go out of stock because it prioritizes that customer experience. And crucially, when it comes to being visible against relevant keywords, it comes to the content itself. So it comes into relevancy. So that's keyword relevancy in the titles, in the descriptions of the products. It comes down to the bullet points, the A+ content as a conversion lever. Ultimately, if your product is driving great sales experience, so driving high volumes, is driving relevancy against a keyword, so consumers have a high click-through rate, conversion rate in that space, the product will constantly become more and more visible in that space. And the key benefit for that is, over time with the algorithm, it is not a sprint, it's a marathon, is the way I express it. For MVD, we call it the incubator period. It takes time to build up that organic ownership of the keyword. Embedding brilliant content with logistics management and commercial ownership that is perfectly harmonized across the business. If we look at Connie Brums at Unilever, She was appointed to be the Chief Digital and Commercial Officer. It's a great example of how brands are now future facing to try and democratize that ownership of understanding how you actually drive that algorithm. So she was brought into place to really leverage standardizing expertise across brand, across sales, across logistics. We recognize that not every brand will have the answer at the minute. We are here to help support, and for brands as a whole, the key message I bring in is if you can work collectively to drive education and understanding of those variables that drive success, the brands will be in a great place to activate and kick on.
And we know Amazon is changing literally all the time. They're able to take all the number of brands and consumer behavior that's happening across those brands online to hone their own ability, and that shifts the algorithm. And people have to stay up to date in terms of some of those changes that are taking place. Some of that they make really transparent and clear, and some of that you have to be on there really to figure out day in and day out. Speak to us a little bit about how they are changing their technology. What are the enablers now, whether it be specific to their own ecosystem or things that they're opening themselves up to in terms of other partnerships with technology partners?
This is my favorite topic.
Good.
If you look at the way that Amazon's evolving its practice, the common message I bring in is it's not retailer, it's a technology ecosystem now. And they're really focusing on, from a profitability lens, as much experience, what they call alternative revenue. So that's anything that is a service model that they can drive to fund the rest of their ecosystem. And the technology they're bringing, one, to really leverage the experience they can bring on site, it's crucially kick on the way they engage in the ecosystem, are things like Amazon Inspire, Amazon's own version of TikTok. It's a brilliant new launch that came in at the start of 2023. I love it. It's only in the US at the minute, tragically, because I'd love to use it more frequently over here. I'm based in the UK for reference. For the Inspire program, it came to life over Prime Day. Amazon doubled down using celebrities, social media influencers, engaging with this TikTok-esque model where effectively you could scroll through content. The content would have a direct path to purchase to the product that's in the video, and you could seamlessly click through, acquire, and actually go into subscription if it was a replenishable product. So social media technology is at the forefront. We saw a 115% increase in traffic from TikTok itself to Prime Day this year. So Amazon's really trying to capitalize there. But the other element—
Can I just stop you there for 1 second to get into the difference between them still being open to partnering with a TikTok, but then also creating Inspire themselves in North America? Do you think that these are going to compete with each other at some point, or they're going to be less open to bringing a TikTok audience into Amazon for conversion, or do you think it's going to be an and?
I think as all the brands working directly with Amazon negotiations will say, Amazon always prefer to have it in their P&L rather than external. But ultimately, Amazon is focused on driving traffic on site, driving great brand experiences. So absolutely, Amazon will welcome with arms wide open the growth of TikTok in this space. They will view it as another channel to drive great brand experiences that can click through seamlessly to a PDP to allow consumers to engage their content, stay on site. What Amazon would like to do is to leverage Inspire in tandem to then, once you're on site, keep you there and keep you engaged in more and more content within the wider ecosystem.
And so are there things that you're seeing, starting with things that have changed and evolved since Amazon Prime Day as we go into back to school and into the holiday season, that are key to making a brand stand out? Because I think so much of this could end up being, you're so focused on getting the recipe right for Amazon that you somehow forget what is ultimately going to make you stand out and break through and be what consumers ultimately gravitate towards.
So I think the first and foremost thing is winning share of voice and having the right strategic foundations in place. I regularly see, and I go back to de-siloing practice, I regularly see brands have a brilliant retail media strategy and then have the wrong products in activation, which are not sustainable for the retailer. And for those who are less familiar, less sustainable typically means less than £10 or $13 on site. If you're investing heavily in that space, it will be heavily loss leading for the retailer. It will be penalized in search on the back end. It's hard to drive the right efficiencies behind it. So when you're building strategies to really stand out on shelf, it has to be coordinated commercially, through logistics, and through retail media and your content division in perfect harmony. So if brands really want to stand out on shelf, they need to create personalized, brilliant creative around the touch points the consumers engaging with and at the right time on that journey. But they then need to synchronize their strategy with great deals for sustainable range that are going to be visible when the shopper's there. Some great technology that Amazon's really rolling out is Amazon Marketing Cloud, which is effectively a data clean room for a cookieless world, is the future of personalization and attribution across the funnel. And tools like Amazon Marketing Stream, which allow you to do hour by hour dynamic tracking of media performance. This is the hyper personalization that brands really need to engage with. If you want standout, generic content, generic media ownership is not going to work. Hyper personalized dynamic adjustments to bidding in real time with dynamic adjustments to content as well to be relevant, say, at a different creative at 10 o'clock at night versus what you're seeing at 10 a.m. in the morning. It's becoming possible, and brands have a great opportunity to build that brand equity with something that truly stands out as a personalized message.
Well, I mean, I know we're biased because we're commerce geeks, but it makes me think about, people who would buy media for like a Super Bowl spot, but then not have the best, they're not running necessarily Super Bowl worthy content. It feels very similar to me on Amazon, yet Amazon really allows you to do so much more, into your point, into the personalization, into the contextual environment context of, everything from occasion to person to time period, which is incredible technology that, really allows for the brand to meet the person with the right message at the right time. I hate to be cliche about that. But let's get a little bit more, because of retail media today, into one, understanding how retail media is sort of changing the game, especially around being able to get more targeted about the exact shoppers that you're going after with the exact message.
Absolutely. I mean, retail media is a hot topic on everyone's lips at the minute. I'm sure many of you have heard about the third wave digital advertising, as they call it. I believe eMarketer created the term. It's expected to be 15% for advertising spend by 2028. Retail media is the force of interaction with brands in the future. And in terms of how you can really leverage that space, I think one, I'll focus on the strategy and then the personalization. But brands need to really tailor what in the funnel they're actually wanting to do with their retail media. So as a first point of call, are you looking at, I know it's a bit of a cliche, awareness, consideration, purchase, loyalty? You have to have the right performance targets against the right area of activation, and you have to have the right media against the right area of the funnel. We still see that display ads, for example, are less than about 20% of total retail media spend. That's typically because it's used for upper funnel activation. Now, if you think about the role of driving awareness and Amazon as a brand equity builder, display can have a crucial role in actually driving that initial great brand experience and getting the cut through that then you can retarget with search, with display at a later date. You can build a staggered funnel behind it. And the way that brands can really track and monitor how they can, which content and which media they need to use at the right time, is leveraging capabilities of Amazon Marketing Cloud. Marketing Cloud tracks retailer anonymized data, brand anonymized data. It's a data clean room that will allow brands to truly map out who their shopper is, when they engage, what gap they have between engagement points. So let's say there's 2 weeks between points of exposure. It will allow brands then to build a tailored message to say 2 weeks down the line, what kind of creative propositions should they receive? How can we personalize it to where they are, who they are, what time of the day it is, and how do we truly measure the performance behind it as well? So it's a new form of MMM that will allow brands to really get under the skin of their media performance. And as we know with retail media as a whole, typically the ROAS is pretty good. So it's a great space to really kick on and drive incremental revenue in the business.
I could keep asking you questions and going deeper and deeper into Amazon with you, James, but I know we're going to be out of time soon. So just to wrap, one final question. You sit within our Commerce as a Service team, our CAS team at VMLY&R Commerce. And I'd love to hear a little bit of, like, for brands that are listening to this, that are thinking they could use some help. ones that are not currently working with us, and even, brands in general that are reaching out to potentially other partners. More broadly, how does an agency partner work with brands to really help optimize the Amazon strategy?
So it's a great question. We work with brands of all sizes, so from blue chip to SMEs. We work with brands that are experts in the space and those that need a lot more support. But the key way that we would work for a brand to really deliver best practice is we'd identify first, what is the role that Amazon marketplaces will play for that brand? How do we incubate the right vision planning, the right strategic frameworks to build success, so that then we can profile the capability to say, this is how you're currently performing. This is where your business really needs to evolve to deliver best in class. This is what success looks like. We can then work with the brands to audit a bit more of a live on-site profile, say, actually, where can we optimize your activation for the A10? Who are the partners you need to deliver success? What's the technology you need to really cultivate and democratize that expertise in e-commerce across your business? And then we follow all the way through to execution of saying, how do we build those brilliant creative experience moments for the consumer? Because ultimately, and I've referenced value probably way too many times today, it all comes down to a perception of value for the consumer. If brands want to win, they have to cultivate those brilliant brand moments. So we will help the brands identify, what are they? How do they leverage it? And how do they really drive value to move the activation from transaction to relationships?
And the meaning of value is, like multidimensional in the way you're talking about it. It's delivering, to your point, the deal for the consumer, helping them understand what is the deal, why is it so valuable, because of the quality and price ratio, all the way to more understanding about the brand and telling that brand story and giving even meaningful value in that exchange. So it's not just a transaction, but it has more of a kind of interaction and engagement embedded in it. So I love what you're saying. And I know from our brand partners, you can sort of come in at any stage across the continuum of what you've described. So look forward to continuing to learn from you, James, and also to work with our great brands and clients to deliver for this season that kicks off with back to school and takes us all the way through to really the new year. So would love to keep the conversation going and keep learning together as Amazon continues to surprise us and to change and delight the consumer along the way.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.